Well, the stock of yesterday undoubtedly was Mahindra and Mahindra. It surged, hitting a fresh 52-week high. Now, there are several reasons why the market is pleased with M&M. One, of course, is the tighter capital allocation policy. And the other one is strong commentary from other tractor makers like Escorts. Anish Shah, the Deputy Managing Director and CFO at Mahindra Group, joins us now to talk about the way forward. Anish, thanks so much for taking the time out and speaking to CNBC TV 18. And greetings of the season to you and your entire team. I want to start by asking you about the tractor segment, which has done extremely well up until now. And many other players like Escorts have raised their guidance for the full year, saying that we could be looking at double-digit growth for the industry. How are you positioned? Are you looking at double-digit growth as well? And these record high margins that you hit in the tractor space, is this sustainable?
So good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here. The tractor industry has bounced back really well. It has been in great shape since May, which is earlier than we had expected. And this is really on the back of very good rainfall, a very good Kharif and Rabi crop. And we see this really picking up even further. The growth year to date has been 12%, and we continue to see robust demand. For us, we've been at full capacity for the last 3 months or so. We were at 90% to 95% capacity prior to that. And despite that, it's been difficult to meet the demand. So we're seeing a very strong comeback in rural areas, and something that we do see is sustainable, at least for the next few months going into next year as well.
Okay.
The second point, margins. There are a number of actions that have driven that. That was one of the aftermaths, in fact, of the pandemic. And as a result, we've cut down on cost significantly in many areas. Some of that is sustainable, and that's something that we will take forward as a learning from this year. And in some cases, some costs will come back. Travel costs, for example, are just low right now because no one's traveling. But there are some other costs like that which we just cut back very significantly right now, which will come back to normal. So on balance, we do expect to be able to have better margins going forward, but it will not likely be the same margin. This year was 26%. It's the highest ever we've seen, and it is by far the highest in the tractor industry as well. Similarly, our auto margins are the highest in the industry. So we've had a good run from that perspective.
Mr. Shah, good morning. Thanks for joining us. This strong sales that you're talking about, is it only in tractors, or is it in the entire tractor come UV come, other auto space as well?
So tractors were off the block very early. The auto industry took a lot more time, and we had a fairly dismal April, May, and June. We're starting to see strong demand in auto as in the festive season. So it's essentially been the last couple of months, October and November, that have picked up a lot. November was very high demand in auto again. We have not been able to meet the demand because of supply constraints. We are currently at about 90% of normal production. And despite that, it's been difficult for us to meet that demand. So we're starting to see auto, but it's more a recent phenomenon as compared to tractors.
Okay. Anish, I'll come back to, demand and guidance in a bit. But lest we run out of time, I want to talk a little bit about the tighter capital allocation policy from the management, which has really enthused investors. You took a huge write-off of around 1150 crores in Q2 on the impairment of certain investments. Would such write-offs continue in the second half of the year? And by when do you expect to clean up your balance sheet, with the right kind of, investment write-offs, say, over the next 6 months? I mean, what is the plan?
So we've seen some issues with our international subsidiaries over the last few quarters. And what we promised our investors is that by end of this fiscal year, we will have all of that cleaned up. We've talked about categorizing them into 3 categories. Category A, which is a clear path to an 18% return. Category B, which is a strong quantifiable strategic benefit. And category C, which is neither of the above, which is therefore a path to exit. There are a number of entities that we have put on a path to exit, and we are in the middle of that entire exercise, getting quite close to the end, I would say. So either next quarter or definitely by the end of this year, we will have a clear view on that. And that's where all of the impairments end. And beyond that, we then go forward with a clean slate.
Okay. Can you give us a number for the likely impairment that is still left? I mean, 1150 crore, right, in the quarter gone by. Would it be half of that, as much as that?
So at this point, it is difficult to give a number on that because it depends on a very vast variety of factors.
Fair enough.
SsangYong is clearly a large factor in that. It depends on if an investor comes in and that takes SsangYong forward. That's a much different picture than some of the other scenarios. And therefore, it's difficult to put a number on that at this point. But I would say that a large part is behind us in terms of what we've done right now.
Okay, Anish, that was then, you're taking away my next question. I was going to ask you an update on SsangYong. Do you have a short
I was
list of
expecting
buyers?
that.
Okay. Do you have a short list of buyers? And can we go to the extent of saying that you can have a write-in of the provisions you've made if the deal is a good one?
There again, early to say. There is a discussion that's going on with a potential investor, and there are obviously various moving pieces. And as we have more information on that, we would happily share it at that point in time. But at this point in time, that's all I can say, because we need to understand more about the investor and what they want to do.
Okay, but that one investor, are you hopeful that you will close it in this quarter or in this second half?
It's not going to go beyond the second half in any case, because SsangYong needs money for operations as well. And therefore, it is important for us to find an investor quickly and bring them in. So we're doing everything we can at this point in time. And we continue to be hopeful. And we will come back with answers when we have them.
Sure.
Okay, that's great to hear that you're moving fast on SsangYong. Getting back to the core businesses then, the big disappointment has been what's happening in the utility vehicle space, especially with your market share. Your market share in UVs has come down sharply to just about 15.5% year to date in FY21. What seems to be the problem? Is it competition? And what are you doing to sort of combat competition and get back your market share?
So there are two aspects to this. One is the longer term trend in market share, and second is this year. This year has been impacted to a larger extent by supply chain issues, and that's something that we will bounce back on. In terms of a longer term trend, the UV space itself has grown rapidly. And what we had initially as our space in UV was the tough, rugged, larger UVs. And today we have a number of smaller UVs that have come in as well. Some that would say is a slightly larger version of a hatchback. And that's a space that has not been the traditional Mahindra space for a while. So our focus is not on market share across the UV segment. Our focus is on the larger UVs, which are the tough, rugged ones. The Thar is a perfect example. That's one that's core to the Mahindra DNA. And there are 3 more that are coming up in the next couple of years that are similar to our DNA. And that's what we're excited about.
Okay. Anisha, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And all the very best, both on the SsangYong front and on the sales front in India.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, so that's a very optimistic commentary that we're getting from M&M, both on the balance sheet side as well as on the sales side. With that, let's invite our next guest. Joining us now, we've been speaking about banks and the Credit Suisse report as well. We have yet another banking expert, Adarsh Parasrampuria, the investment analyst for financial services at CLSA, joins us now. He's joining us from the sidelines of the 23rd CITIC CLSA Annual India Forum. Adarsh, thank you very much for joining us. We were not lucky to get you in your previous avatar. It's good that you're joining us now. First up, I was very impressed by the first page of your latest report, where you say that although, prices of several banking stocks have risen, private sector banks, they have not yet caught up in terms of valuations with their historical levels?
Yeah, so I think we need to put things in context. I think there are 2-3 key points that we want to highlight here. First is, yes, we should acknowledge the fact that the sector has rallied hard in the last 2-3 weeks. It's been a significant rally. I think what we hear and the commentaries that is coming gives us confidence on 2 counts, which kind of makes us think that there is more scope for re-rating. First is the corporate cycle, which has been weak for the last 4-5 years. It looks like a large part of the cleanup was done pre-COVID, so we don't get to see any large NPAs in spite of COVID kind of pandemic. Two, and more importantly, we had a huge retail cycle growth over the last 4 or 5, over the last 7-8 years, and there was no credit testing. The cycle was pretty benign, and COVID was supposed to test that and test that pretty hard. And the commentaries coming from large banks are clearly indicating that they could get away with the pandemic with, say, 100, 150 basis point extra credit cost, right? So I think if you put these two things together, these are 70, 80% of balance sheets of large banks. And I would say these two things are probably driving a conviction that there is more returns to be made in the large names in the sector.
Adesh, good morning. Of course, the valuations got hammered down in the peak of the COVID times, and now the stocks have run up, but still not at their peak valuations. Even something like an HDFC Bank is not at peak valuation. Do you see some of these larger banks getting those kind of multiples back?
Yeah, we'll not get into specific names, but yes, the top quality banks are almost there. The second banks, which were the corporate banks and top-notch PSUs, are clearly not there. Our view there would be that as you get more clarity, and we are running with our 23rd CITIC CLSA conference, we have almost all the large banks participating in presenting. One of the key feedbacks that I'm seeing after the second quarter results is the fact that the September collections have held up in October, and things are holding up in November as well, right? So you're getting more points of a fairly sustainable servicing of the EMIs that borrowers have, and that's a fairly positive news coming through from banks. So from that perspective, I think as you get into the third and the fourth quarter, when you get full clarity, you will see some of that gap close down as well. And I think I just want to re-emphasize the point that retail loan book of the system in general is up by about 5x in the last 7-8 years without a credit cycle, right? And COVID does provide a very strong stress test, and the outcomes now is looking to be fairly positive versus expectations.
Sure. Adarsh, good morning. We were just talking about a Credit Suisse note where they pointed out that the stress debt is down sharply, especially in the corporate-focused banks. And they say that COVID stress on corporate India appears limited now. Would you concur with that view that the worst perhaps is over in terms of corporate stress? And do you think there's more upside for these corporate-facing banks, ICICI Bank, SBI, Kotak?
Okay. Yeah, so I think one of the key things even last year would have been that have we recognized all the stress in corporate India? And again, COVID would have been a fairly strong stress test for some of these banks. I think apart from bearing one or two large names, we hardly hear of new names which could end up becoming problematic for the system in general. If you go through some of the rating agencies' reports, they clearly indicate that 98-99% of the listed large corporate universe is unlikely to even opt for a restructuring, right? So that provides us enough data and conviction that yes, what you saw in the last 5 years in terms of corporate slippages and NPA issues, we are broadly at the end of it, right? Now, coming to the point that you raised, that so does that mean a good outlook for ICICI and Axis kind of corporate-facing banks? The answer to that is yes. Investors have been waiting for this period. More importantly, I think what makes us constructive on these names is the fact that some of these banks have retailized in a big way in the last 5-7 years. Some of these improvements got masked by the fact that that there was an underlying corporate bad cycle that was going on. But I think once that ends, the structural improvements will also come to the fore. So this would be one of the pockets where I think there is still a room for valuations to catch up as we go along in the next 12 months.
Okay. Well, going by your current valuation compared to target multiples, looks like SBI has the biggest upside.
Again, Lata, we will not, I'll refrain from commenting on specific companies, but what I can tell you is top-notch PSUs, their asset quality will hold up significantly better than market expectations simply because 70-80% of their lending on the retail side has been to government stroke central state defense PSU employees, and there have been no cash flow issues
Okay.
because of COVID. To the same metric that applies to private corporate banks, that the corporate NPA cycle is nearing the end, would apply to some of these banks as well. So in that
Okay.
sense, and the stock has not, some of these stocks are clearly fairly reasonable in that sense. So I would say that yes, there is some more room for valuations to
Okay.
catch up in some of these.
Okay, Adarsh, is your thesis that there is scope for valuations to catch up based on the fact that provisioning will be less than you originally anticipated, or would you say that there is even a chance of better loan growth because the economic recovery seems to be better than what most economists anticipated? So, will that give further headroom then for you to pull up target prices and multiples?
So I think 2 points here. First, on provisioning, we have brought down our provisioning uh, for the next 2 years by about 20-25% as we've got more clarity in the first and second quarter, more so in the second quarter. As we go along, we still have a cushion vis-a-vis what managements have guided. So if third quarter, the collections pan out the way they're doing today, and they continue till Jan and Feb, then I think there will be some more room for our provisioning assumptions to kind of go lower. I think the second point that you asked me is an interesting question, that we are not very gung-ho on the growth pickup. Yes, while we are at 5% and growth should pick up, one needs to be cognizant of the fact that I'm not getting feedback from managements that the capex cycle is recovering anytime soon. Corporates are on a deleveraging cycle, so that part of the loan growth has been muted for the last 4 or 5 years and will remain muted at least for the foreseeable future. So what you need to see is the retail recovery, which we are seeing now, should hold post the pent-up plus festive season. If that does, then retail growth picks up and that will aid overall growth, right? So I think that is a important barometer that we will track, but that's not a metric on which we would expect system loan growth to kind of move beyond 7-8% in a hurry.
Okay, just one final question then. Do you track the NBFC space? I mean, there have been big strides in the Bajaj twins, for example, up almost 45% this month. But how is the turf looking?
So I think one of the comments that, we obviously track the NBFC space. One of the comments that I would make here is that one segment where I would still have a little bit of a word of caution is the MSME business owner segment. While collections there and feedback from most companies do indicate that collections there are picking up as well, one of the key things that one needs to keep in mind is this is a segment which has got significant amount of funding under the government guarantee scheme. So whether the cash flows that are being serviced today is coming from actual cash flows of the companies or small businesses, or they are coming from the extra funding that banks have given, will get clear as we move along in the next 3 to 6 months. When I try and look at the NBFC space, they are more exposed to this part of the book, which is the SMEs and the business owners. So that will be a little bit of a word of caution, but certainly the rate cycle is playing out quite well for them, and majority of them are benefiting from this benign liquidity environment.
Okay, Adarsh, we'll leave it there today. Thanks a lot for joining us. It was good talking to you. But let's move on then, address the market. Now that the setup has played out, the first dip has been bought. Normally on days like today, the first dip, that's the algo trade which plays out immediately. Now it will be important to see if there's a second dip or not. Also, the mid caps are doing well. That really has been the theme. Look at something like a Godrej Properties, for example, and the kind of buying that you're seeing on that stock now, or Apollo Hospitals, which has moved to 2,400. There's been very strong buying in some of these names. We spoke about in the morning Bajaj Finance. That's made a strong comeback, already back to the high point of the day. Mitesh Thakkar is now joining us back once again. So Mitesh, the first dip has been bought, but what's your view now and what would be your calls?
Yeah. Rightly so. I think we got a low of 12,835, and we were looking at 12, 820, 830 as a key support zone right next to the low made yesterday. So the market remains strong, so we are trading still with long bias. I have a buy call on ICICI GI with a stop at 1300 for targets of 1350, and Tata Chemicals is moved up a bit, but even at current levels I would just revise the target on the upside further. So buy with a stop at 325 for targets of 350 instead of 342.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mitesh, for joining us. We'll touch base later. For the moment, it's a break, and we're going to, discuss markets and discuss markets. We have another expert, Surendra Goyal.